me for the flag of allegiance, our pledge of allegiance. Flag of allegiance. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Roll call.
Commissioner Dixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Krushat?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Vice Chair Paahana?
Aye.
Chair Mendoza?
Aye.
All present?
These proceedings may be viewed on demand on the City of 29 Palms website at www.29palms.org. You may also live stream this meeting by going on the city website and clicking on the meetings agenda link. Public comments. This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission on issues within the jurisdiction of the Commission that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the Chair of the Commission and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please upload name and address slips and give them to the Planning Commission Secretary. The Planning Commission is prohibited by the Brown Act from taking action or discussing at length any items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments on the specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the item of the agenda. We have no request for make general comments, so we'll go to commission comments and reports of meetings attended. Jim?
I didn't attend any meetings since our last commission meeting.
Leslie?
Same as Mr. Jim. I have not attended any meetings since our last.
Max?
Yeah, no meeting is attended.
Jason?
No meetings attended.
I have not attended any meetings, and most of those are, of course, because of the COVID. So, okay. Consent calendar, approval of Planning Commission meeting minutes of August 4th. I take it everyone has had a chance to read the minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve well, if there's no corrections or deletions or additions, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes as read.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Dixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Krushat?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Vice Chair Paahana?
Aye.
Chair Mendoza?
Aye.
5-0 approved.
Public hearings, PC 20-27, appeal of a vacation home rental, vacation home rental permit number R114. Travis?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Diane Olson will be presenting this case for you this evening, and then we have a letter from the applicant that we'd like to read into the record, as well as get public comment.
Good evening, Commissioners. This item is an appeal of an application for a vacation home rental. The vacation home rental application is Angelina Corbo-Emmons, and the appellant is Steve and Laura Spear. The property is located at 6670 Ivanpaw Avenue. The property is zoned residential single family, 4 dwelling units per acre. Property is a 0.19 acre and contains a 3-bedroom home of 1,296 square feet. This is a location map of where the property is located. It is located in the Indian Cove neighborhood. And these are photos. This is the front of the property. The next photo is taken from the north. And the third photo is taken from the south. The appellants have cited the following reasons as basis for the appeal of the vacation home rental application: drunkenness, loud music, racing vehicles, gunfire, and disrespect of neighborhood residents that live in the vacation home rental neighborhood. The city has received no complaints to code enforcement regarding the property, nor does the Sheriff's Department have any records of any calls to this address. The applicant has submitted all the required documents for the VHR application. The required safety inspection has been completed. So the applicant is in compliance with all the requirements for the VHR permit. If there are any violations of the requirements, the city can cite the applicant for those violations. They can choose to not to renew the permit based on those violations, or the third option is they can revoke the permit based on the violations. Therefore, staff's recommendation is to deny the appeal and approve the application for the vacation home rental. That concludes the staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Diane? I have one. Have we had any complaints on vacation home rentals to code enforcement or the sheriff's office on any vacation home rental in 29 Palms?
Not to date, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have. Anyone else? Questions of staff? Thank you, Diane. Okay, at this point, I'm going to open the public hearing. And I have a letter from the applicant, which she wishes to have read into the record, or would you like to speak to this yourself? If you come up to the podium, please.
First, it's been a long time since I've been on one of these. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak and for holding this. I pretty much spelled out my response to Mr. and Mrs. Spears' letter regarding their concerns, which I also would have those concerns were I living next to any vacation home rental. I believe in a strict enforcement of the code of conduct. I am a former firefighter. My husband was just retired recently from the Marine Corps after 25 years. We like to be able to contribute to the city and offer the opportunity for people to stay at a home away from home when they like to travel. It's a lovely location. But I just wanted to reassure the Spears, as well as anyone else in here, that I do not tolerate any sort of behavior or lewd conduct that was referenced in their letter. And if, for some awful reason, there was something such as that going on, it would be my greatest pleasure to knock on the door and ask them to leave. And that's the beauty of the vacation home rental, whereas if you have a tenant in there that is not so law-abiding, you don't have that opportunity to, on the spot, evict them. And they also back that with the rental companies. They're very strict as far as having guests abide by the rules. So thank you so much for allowing me that opportunity. And I know I put a little bit more into the letter, so I get forgetful. I apologize.
Any questions for the applicant? I have one, just to clarify. You live within 5 minutes of the property?
Yes, sir, I do.
And it would be you or your husband directly responding, you don't have an agent?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's me directly or my husband.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, I have one request to speak, and would be Steve Spear. Come up to the podium, please.
Hey, Greg. Nice to see you again, and thank you, Planning Commission, for letting me come here to speak. It is not, or ever has been, my intent to stop the VHR being approved at the Ivanpah address. The issues I've pointed out in my letter, I have noticed as a sheriff sergeant over 27 years of service. They are not associated with that address. City staff is incorrect to report that to you. What I desired to do was to have you as a commission look at the current ordinance and see if it is even fair for the permanent residents of a neighborhood. I use language that causes concern, and I have been known to use explosive language, and that was my intent. What is bad is a city staff that reports to you there have been no problems with this address. So what is he, Spear, even talking about? Of course there have been no problems, because it hasn't been approved as a VHR. My crystal ball works as good as the city staff's crystal ball. It appears to me that there's another resident that has pointed out to you that this residence has been operating as a VHR out of code for months. I have noticed cars in the driveway over the past few months that are different and not consistent with permanent dwellers. To me, that alone is a reason to deny the application, because the current applicant apparently was violating city code. However, I realize that does not fit into the code you must follow as a planning commission. I ask you, how many residents must say they do not want a VHR in their neighborhood? Is one enough? I think not. Maybe two, getting there. How about 5? What city staff does not realize is the way the code is written, it does not matter if there are even 100 residents in opposition. You as a planning commission have no choice but to follow the code as it is and approve the application, which I fully well know from being a council member. You have no choice. I spoke to my next door neighbor today, and he claims he did not receive a letter from the city asking if he and his wife disapproved of the application. Very strange. He also told me the residence just 2 lots directly south of me. If you look on your map, you would see it. Is an Airbnb, but is not listed as a VHR. Therefore, the city cannot track it or follow it. And that residence has caused him issues, such as floodlights shining into his house, loud music, and parties into the early morning hours. Numerous code violations there, but nobody does anything. And he is afraid to do anything. I am not. My other neighbors have also told me they are afraid to call the SO about the events on our own street, and commend me for actually trying to do something by calling the sheriff's office and by attempting to change the mindset of a city that to them and me has gone in favor of non-resident homeowners as opposed to those who actually live in the area. Could it be possible to require VHR owners to actually live in the 300-foot radius that the city seems to think is so important for notification of the local residents, but is not important for the owner to live within that same area? Maybe if she lived 300 feet from the house, she could manage it and control it, but she cannot. I realize you as a commission have, according to the rules, no choice but to approve the application. I hold no grudge upon you because I know you have no choice. Or is that really so? You can be leaders if you so desire. You can deny the application and force the city council, as I have spoken with Frank Lucchino about, to address this current ordinance, which is inappropriate and unfair to people who have lived in a neighborhood for over 30 years. When I was on the council and people would complain to me, I told them, don't complain, get involved and change the rules. Well, I'm here tonight to change the rules, and I shall move forward to change the rules. Greg, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
Anybody have any questions for the speaker? I have actually one, Steve.
Sure.
What happens if you have a rental house with horrible people in it?
Like I've done, I'm sure you have contacted the lieutenant or the captain to find out how many calls for services I have provided on Pine Spring Avenue. And I've provided 3 about a house that's just,
Sure.
south of me.
How long does it take to get those tenants out?
Oh, a minimum of 90 days.
Exactly. You have, in this particular case, the applicant lives within 5 minutes. So I would suspect, you know,
I do not disagree with you at all on that.
okay,
My point being is that she may rent to somebody from Los Angeles for a week, and they're fine. She may then rent to somebody from Orange County for a week. That is not fine. The issue is vacation home rentals are a volatile situation. If you have bad permanent tenants, you sick the SO on them, and you get Thornburg, who used to be your code enforcement officer, on them. In her case, there's nothing I can do. And I think that's apropos for the whole city. There's a problem with this situation, and we need to force the owners to live in the same area that they're renting this thing out to. Thank you.
I actually have a question. What would be your desired change to the development code for the vacation home rental?
That the owner
Live within 300
the same
feet.
radius. Because the city seems to think it's important to notify me, because I'm within 100 yards of this thing, that it's gonna happen. Well, if it's just gonna happen, why even write me a letter? Because you have no choice tonight, you know that, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So why even send out the letters? Just let it happen. I think the code needs to be changed. Live within 100 yards, not 5 minutes. Not in Florida. Live right next to it or close to it so you can fix it when it goes south. That's my recommendation.
thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Hearing none, I'm gonna close the public hearing, bring it back up here to the dais, and we'll start with Leslie. You have questions, comments? Max?
No questions or comments.
Jason?
No, I mean, not really. I mean, they both make valid points, and I mean, it goes back to what we're able to do and look at future things to maybe change later on. But as of right now, I mean, I don't have any additional questions or concerns right now.
Jim?
Yeah, I just have a couple comments. As far as being leaders, I think that the city was taking the lead when they put this regulation in place back in 2016. I've heard comments about VROBs that we don't want to be like Joshua Tree. Well, we're not like Joshua Tree because we do have an enforceable regulation in place, and that was because of the foresight of the city, and I appreciate that. What they have to do to get a VROB is the things that they have to go through, that an owner has to go through for the health and safety of the people that are going to occupy it, I think are kind of a big enough hurdle for anybody just throwing a VROB up. If there is a VROB that is operating illegally, then that needs to be reported, and the city can take action. So if you know of a VROB that is operating illegally, that should be reported. I don't have a problem. I live in an area where I have 3 around me, and 2 of them I've had no problems. I've walked up, I've met the people. It's very good. One of them is no longer going to be a VROB because he wants to go back to long-term rental because it's not the cash cow that everybody thinks it is. And that's kind of how the economics are going to work in this situation. I mean, I've heard some people talk about, well, limit, have a certain amount, and I don't know what that would be. There's 450 homes in the area we're talking about. Would that be 45, 10%? There's 8 right now. So it's not really an issue. And I think economics takes care of it in the long run. Because if it gets oversaturated with VRBs, they don't get rented out and people go back to long-term rentals. That's just the way the economics are going to be. Again, I get back to the problem of if you have a problem, there's an avenue for reporting it. And either to the sheriff's office, to the city, to the owners. And there's ways to take care of it. I see them as positives for the city. And if you can sit there and say, okay, I have 5 people that don't like VROBs, and somebody comes back and say, I have 50 that say that they're great. I mean, I don't know how we're going to answer that question. But what we can do is, you're right, we can relook at the regulation, and there is a perception by some citizens that it is a problem, and I think we need to address those, and we can do that offline. Like you said, we're going to have to approve this because there's no reason not to. It meets the requirements that have been set by the city. And the only thing I would add is if somebody knows about an illegal VROB, please report it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add,
Sure.
you know, I think I informed the commission a few months ago that we have software that does actively scan the web for VRB postings and compares that to our list of licensed vacation home rentals. And so we are able to catch many of them. I won't say it's 100% foolproof, but it's pretty effective in finding these that are not properly permitted.
Thank you. I would somewhat echo Jim's comments. I have VRBs in my neighborhood and not had a peep out of them. Had more issue with the long-term rental. Finally, we have somebody decent in there, so. I am willing to look at,
Excuse me, I have hearing aids, I don't hear too well, so he's closer to the mic and helps me.
okay, how's that?
Thank you.
I certainly don't have an issue with looking at the code, if so directed by the city council. There are certain things that we cannot regulate. If we're going to require VROB owners to live within 300 yards, then I feel we need to require long-term rental owners to live within 300 yards, as far as that section goes. Now, possibly, there could be some way to have a percentage of any particular neighborhood. That might be something that's effective. But we, as Steve understands, we don't have a choice tonight. All of the requirements are met by the applicant. Staff has recommended approval. I see nothing, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but I see nothing that would cause us to uphold the appeal. So I'm ready to take a motion however you want.
I motion that we deny the application for appeal of the vacation home rental and approve VHR 114 located at 6670 Ivanpah Avenue.
Have a motion?
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Dixon?
Aye.
Commissioner Krushat?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Vice Chair Palahana?
Aye.
Chair Mendoza?
Aye.
5-0 to approve the vacation home rental and deny the appeal.
I would ask staff to bring this forward to the city manager, city council to see if they would like us to review this. If so, then we can schedule it for a workshop or whatever.
It is actually on the city council's agenda as a future item. for
Okay,
discussion.
great. All right. Perfect. Okay, you open your vacation home rental. Okay, where are we here? We are moving into, we did the public hearings. Where's my agenda? I'm sorry. Okay. Discussion, potential action items. We have none. Community Development Director updates?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple for you. Just wanted to report that the undergrounding phase of Project Phoenix has begun. You may have seen the big crane out there. We were moving forward whether or not we had Frontier in the pocket or not, but we actually did get the purchase order from Frontier on Monday to Edison. So this phase of the project should be completed by year's end. Also, just wanted to mention the planning for Pioneer Park is underway, especially the community outreach component. Those meetings have started. We're going to have another one this Thursday at 6 p.m. at the theater, and then one is tentatively planned for Saturday at 7 a.m. And then I've also given you a flyer here of some other outreach meetings that are occurring on the 28th, Friday, August 28th, and Saturday, August 29th as well. So we have lots of meetings because we, certainly want to adhere to the county's guidance on, COVID regulations, including social distancing and limiting the number. So we do ask that people RSVP to the meeting so we can make sure that we manage all of that properly. And there's a number on the flyer to RSVP that's through Parks and Recreation. I think Christina, who's out in the lobby, is managing all of that and controlling it. So we definitely want a lot of input into this whole process. The meetings are held in the Theater 29. It is air conditioned, so it's not going to be outside like we had some of our other ones. And there's also an online survey to go with it as well. So you can jump on our Facebook page, and if you don't feel comfortable going to an in-person meeting, then the alternative is there. And I just wanted to give a little bit of background on this. This park is not something that just popped up out of the blue. It's been in our general plan for many, many years. It's also been in the Parks and Rec master plan for many, many years. So it's been part of the city's planning documents for quite some time. And the other thing I wanted to mention is we're not giving up on Knott Sky Park as well. We're going to dust off that application as well. And probably after we get the feedback from Pioneer Park, just so that we can compare the community wishes, and we might want to tweak Knott Sky Park a little bit, the plan for that. But we will go forward with both applications this December. And then the other one that we're working on is the Amboy Road bike path. This is to extend the current bike path along Amboy Road to the Sunmore Estates neighborhood. We actually had that in the city as one of the capital projects, and that money was taken back because of the fiscal impact of COVID. But we found another potential avenue, and that's the active transportation grant process. So we're working on that application. We'll be submitting it September, I think, 15th on that. And then just kind of an update on the downtown specific plan. We still haven't made a choice on the consultant. We're getting really close. I've been checking references on them, and it's been a little bit of difficult because a lot of people are on vacation and just kind of juggling that. But hopefully we'll wrap it up really soon, and we'll have a consultant selected, and that work can begin. Related to that is that it looks like we are going to be receiving $150K. This is for an update to our general plan, both the housing element and the safety element, which are all required to be updated under state law. Because we're updating our hazard mitigation plan, that kicks off an update to the safety element and just kind of snowballs from there. So that work will begin too. And then a related topic, accessory dwelling units. Again, this is kind of a state change in the law that supersedes our own ADU, accessory dwelling unit ordinance. Significant changes to our own ordinance, actually far less restrictive than what our current one has. So technically, our ADU ordinance is not existent until we're compliant with the state. So we've rewritten that and submitted it to the state. They've reviewed it and they've given us feedback, so we'll be bringing that back to you. Probably in a study session format because it's so complex, just to understand. I just want to make sure that we thoroughly understand what the changes are before we move forward. And then finally, we will not plan on having a meeting on September 1st, but we'll likely have one on September 15th.
What was the date of the next meeting for the park planning?
The very next one is this Thursday at, the 20th at 6 p.m. And then another one is planned this Saturday at 7 a.m. And then the flyer gives you the next three that are planned after that.
Okay.
And we're trying to reach out to all the groups, obviously a lot of the sporting groups that we have, the clubs in town, but people within the neighborhood as well. Obviously the people involved with the theater, our arts groups, so we're trying to throw a big broad net throughout the city on this.
So if we already did the questionnaire that was on Facebook,
Mhm.
do you want us to attend the meetings for those?
No, I would say you're still invited. I think it's always good to, as some of you guys, experienced when we were planning Knott Sky Park, to hear what other people's ideas are. Because we're going to have to take all of these ideas and sort of consolidate them. Obviously figure out what will fit within the park footprint. And, there's, some things we just have to be realistic about. We already have a skate park. The state's not going to fund another one. We already have a swimming pool. The state parks is not going to fund another one. So those kind of things have to be considered when we lay out the park design.
Any further questions? No study session. Does anybody have anything else for the good of the commission? Questions, comments, witticisms, criticisms, funny stories, bits of gossip? Mr. Spear?
Just real quick, seems to be a misunderstanding here. Perhaps I'm wrong, but isn't there a requirement upon the city that? Could you talk into the mic, please? Sure. Isn't there a requirement upon the city that there's a limit to the number of bars that are allowed in a given geographic area?
There is an ABC limit, or I guess threshold, and if that threshold is extended for a certain zip code, then the ABC informs the city and says, is the city willing to approve an additional one over? And I believe it's 4 or 5 per zip code.
Correct, and I remember approving a few when I sat up there. So this issue that Airbnbs can just proliferate without some form of restriction, I believe is a falsehood that the city needs to address. And that's just throwing that out there, Greg.
Okay.
I think you guys have some work to do. And I appreciate you guys listening to me. Thank
Okay.
you.
And if we do have workshops on this, I invite you to attend and give us input. All right. Anything else? Anybody want to go home?
Yes.
Let's adjourn.